9 minutes from now, you will know exactly how the tire department at most chain shops decides whether you walk out spending $200 or $2,000. 9 minutes because that is roughly how long the standard tire pitch takes from the moment a service writer hands your keys to the moment a tablet is sliding across the counter. With for new tires, an alignment, a road hazard warranty, and a balancing fee bundled into one signature line. I have watched this pitch play out maybe 4,000 times across the last decades, sometimes from inside the shop, sometimes standing in waiting rooms as a friend, and once or twice as the angry customer myself, before I knew better. The pitch is so consistent that if you blindfolded me and dropped me into any chain tire counter in the country, I could recite the next 5 sentences before the advisor opened his mouth. It works on inexperienced drivers because it is dressed in safety language, layered with urgency, and timed to arrive at the exact moment you are most distracted, looking at your phone, watching the clock, hoping to be back on the road in time for an appointment. The whole thing rests on 5 specific moves, and once you can name them out loud, the spell breaks. Today I am walking you through every one. The first move is the premature wear lie, and this is where it always begins. Your car goes up on the lift for what should be a free tire check, or a rotation, and a few minutes later a tech walks out holding a small yellow gauge or a penny, depending on how dated the shop is, and tells you your tires are at for 30 seconds of tread, which is below the safe threshold. He may use the word marginal, he may say borderline. He will almost certainly say something about wet weather stopping distance. What he will not say is the actual federal definition of a worn tire, which is to 30 seconds, marked by a wear bar molded into the rubber that becomes flush with the tread when the tire is genuinely done. For 30 seconds is not done. For 30 seconds is the point at which tire manufacturers and chain shops have agreed it is acceptable to start recommending replacement in wet climates, because rain handling does drop off at that depth. But it is a recommendation, not a requirement, and it is also exactly the depth at which a brand new set is most profitable to sell, because your tires still have a third of their useful life left and the shop captures that wear in margin. The honest answer for most drivers in most climates is that you have 10 to 20,000 miles left at for 30 seconds, depending on how heavy your foot is and whether you live where it snows. I keep a tread depth gauge in my glove box that costs $2. I check my own tires every oil change. The number tells the truth, the pitch never does. Lilibet Cornish learned this the hard way and called me afterward to share the story. She is a 27-year-old veterinary technician in Portland, drives a small crossover she bought used the year before, and she had brought the car in for a free tire rotation at a chain location that had mailed her a coupon. The tech ran the standard pitch, tread it for 30 seconds. Wet weather risk, recommended replacement. The smell of warm rubber from the lift bay hung in the air as he held up the gauge with his thumb pressed against the reed line, and Lilibet, who had never measured her own tires in her life, felt the bottom of her stomach drop. She told me later that she almost signed for a $470 set on the spot. What stopped her was the advisor mentioning that the alignment was also recommended, which seemed redundant to her because the car was tracking perfectly straight. She paused, said she wanted to think about it, and drove the car to me. I pulled my own gauge from the glove box, measured every tire in every position, and the actual readings were 5 30 seconds on the front tires and 6 30 seconds on the rears. Not worn, not marginal, comfortably in the middle of. Useful life with at least 15,000 miles remaining. The honest version of that visit reads like this. Rotation $30, done. The inflated version, fully bundled, would have read like this. For tires $470. Mounting and balancing $100. Alignment $120. Road hazard warranty $120. Tire pressure sensors $60. Disposal and supplies $40. Total $910. The gap between the honest visit and the bundled inflation was $880, generated entirely by one wrong gauge reading and the assumption that Lilibet would not check. The second move is the one I want you to really lock in, because I am going to circle back to it in a few minutes when we get to the most expensive trap of all. The second move is the you need all for pressure. This one is usually delivered by the advisor at the counter, not the tech in the back, and it follows the inspection by about 90 seconds. He explains that even though only 1 or 2 tires are worn, modern vehicles, especially anything with all-wheel drive or even some front-wheel drive cars with electronic traction control, require all 4 tires to be replaced together to avoid damaging the differential or confusing the stability system. This is sometimes true. It is also frequently exaggerated. On a genuine all-wheel drive vehicle with a viscous coupling or a clutch pack, center differential, replacing only 1 or 2 tires can create a circumference mismatch that does cause real damage over time, and the manufacturer's specification on that is worth following. But on a front-wheel drive car, on a rear-wheel drive car, and on many newer all-wheel drive systems that can disengage rear power, replacing 2 tires on the same axle matched to the existing pair is perfectly acceptable and standard industry practice. The pitch that conflates all of these into one mandatory for tire purchase is the move that turns a $400 repair into an $800 one. Know your drivetrain. If you are not sure, the owner's manual tells you. In plain language, usually in the wheels and tires section. If the manual says nothing about mandatory for tire replacement, then the recommendation at the counter is a sales preference, not an engineering one. You are allowed to say no to it. Let me give you the snapshot here. 30 seconds. Picture a young driver, maybe 24 years old, standing at a service counter holding her car keys, looking at a tablet that shows a total of $940 highlighted in blue. She came in for 1 nail in 1 rear tire. The advisor is explaining, calmly and patiently, that all 4 tires need to come off because of all-wheel drive requirements on her crossover. The car is front-wheel drive. She does not know this, because the brochure when she bought it mentioned all-wheel drive as an option she did not choose. The advisor either does not know either, or does and is using the ambiguity. She signs. She drives away in a car wearing 3 tires that did not need to be replaced. The shop made roughly $700 of unnecessary revenue in 11 minutes of conversation. That is the entire scam in one frame. The third move is the cheap tire upcharge, and this is the trick that targets every customer who walks in trying to be price conscious. You ask for the cheapest set the shop offers. The advisor pulls up 3 options, points at the bottom one, and tells you it is technically available, but he wouldn't put it on his own wife's car. He gestures up the list. He says the middle option is what most people choose. He says the top option is what he runs on his own truck. This is a tactic borrowed straight out of restaurant menu engineering, where the cheapest item is placed there to make the middle item look like a smart compromise. The cheap tire is often perfectly serviceable. It may carry a slightly shorter tread life warranty, maybe 40,000 miles instead of 60,000, and a slightly noisier ride at highway speed, but it will stop your car, grip in rain, and last several years for the average driver who puts 10,000 miles a year on the odometer. The math gets ugly the moment you upgrade, going from a $60 tire to a $140 tire across for positions adds $320 to your invoice, plus higher mounting and disposal fees because shops scale those charges by tire price on some systems. For a daily driver who is not towing, not tracking, not living in extreme weather, the bottom or second from bottom tier is almost always the right choice. The advisor knows this. He is paid to point you upward anyway. You are allowed to point yourself back down. Aldo Marchetti is a retired construction foreman in Newark who drives a 15-year-old sedan with 240,000 miles on it, a car he keeps running for short trips to the grocery store and to his daughter's house on weekends. He needed 2 new front tires last fall because the originals had finally worn down to the wear bars, and he walked into a chain shop with $70 cash in his pocket and $100 more on a debit card, expecting to pay around $150 installed for a basic pair. The advisor steered him through 3 options, all priced above $200 per tire, with a final bundled quote of $720 including the warranty and alignment and disposal fees the system added by default. Aldo, who has been buying tires for 50 years, smiled, said thank you, and walked out. He drove 2 miles to the small independent tire shop where his nephew works, bought the basic touring tires at $64 each, paid $30 total for mounting and balancing with disposal included, and was back on the road in 40 minutes for $158 out the door. The tires he bought carried a 45,000-mile warranty, made by the same manufacturer that produced the higher tier the chain wanted to sell him, just in a lower trim level. The tread compound was nearly identical, the construction was nearly identical. The only meaningful difference was the brand name printed on the sidewall and the price tier the chain had categorized it into. Same rubber, same road grip, 1/5 the bundled cost. The 4th move is the alignment required with Tires Gambit, and this one is so universal that some shops actually print it as a default add-on at the bottom of the quote before they even ask. The pitch is that new tires must be installed with a fresh alignment, otherwise the warranty is void and your new tires will wear unevenly within the first month. The first half of that statement is sometimes literally true in the warranty fine print, depending on the brand. The second half is a stretch, a vehicle that was tracking straight, with even tire wear, no pulling, and no recent suspension or steering work, does not suddenly need an alignment because new rubber is bolted on. Tires do not change a car's alignment angles. Curbs, potholes, suspension wear, and worn ball joints change alignment angles. If your old tires were wearing evenly across the tread, your new tires will too on the same alignment. The $120 alignment add-on at tire installation is, for many customers, money spent to confirm the car is already aligned. Reasonable shops will perform a free alignment check first, show you the printout, and let you decide. Shops running the pitch hard will skip the check entirely and add the alignment to the work order automatically, hoping you nod through the total. Ask every time for the alignment check printout before the alignment is performed. If the angles are within spec, you do not need the service. The printout costs the shop almost nothing to generate and protects you from a charge you do not owe. The alignment rack itself is a noisy thing if you have never seen one in use. The metal arms swing out from the rack and clamp around each wheel with a sharp pneumatic hiss. The laser sensors blink red as they pick up the targets, and the technician walks around the car twice tapping numbers into a screen as the computer calculates camber, caster, and toe on every corner. The whole reading takes about 3 minutes. The printout that drops out of the small thermal printer next to the screen shows 3 colored bars per wheel. Green means in spec, yellow means marginal. Red means out of spec. If every bar on your printout is green, you do not need the alignment service that follows. You need the printout itself, which the shop is supposed to give you for free, and which most shops will only print if you specifically ask. The smell of the alignment bay, faintly of warm hydraulic fluid, and the dry electronic warmth of the laser unit is one I associate with honest shops because it is the smell of measurement happening before recommendation. The 5th move is the road hazard warranty trap, and this is the one that closes the whole pitch, usually right at the signature page, often after the customer has been standing at the counter for 20 minutes and just wants to leave. The advisor explains that for an additional $30 per tire, $120 total, the tires are covered against nails, sidewall damage, road debris, and pothole damage for the life of the tread. It sounds reasonable. The math, when you actually look at it, almost never works in your favor. Most road hazard warranties exclude exactly the damage you are most likely to experience. Curb scuffs are excluded, misalignment wear is excluded. Damage caused by failure to maintain proper inflation is excluded. The covered events, mostly punctures from nails and screws, are also the events most likely to be repaired with a $6 tire plug or a $30 patch at any shop. No warranty needed. The warranty pays out, on average, for less than 1 in 8 customers who buy it, and even when it does pay out, the prorated coverage on a tire halfway through its life often returns only $40 to $60 per tire toward a replacement. The math is upside down for the beer and right side up for the shop. Beverly Kweku is the example I want to use here because her situation captures the warranty trap perfectly. She is a 41-year-old elementary school principal in Houston, drives about 8,000 miles a year, mostly to and from school and to her mother's apartment on weekends. She bought a set of 4 tires 3 years ago at a chain shop and accepted the road hazard warranty at the counter because, in her words, it felt responsible. Total warranty cost $144. Across the 3 years that followed, Beverly experienced 2 flat tires. The first was a screw in a rear tire that the chain shop patched for free under the warranty, a service that any independent shop would have done for $30 without any warranty. The second was a sidewall puncture from road debris on a highway construction zone. The warranty covered that one, prorated at 52%, because the tire was halfway through its tread life, and Beverly received a credit of $41 toward a replacement tire that cost her $210 out of pocket. Total warranty payout across 3 years, $71. Total warranty cost, $144. Net loss, $73, plus the time spent at the counter explaining her claim each time. The honest math says she would have come out ahead by a small margin, simply paying for repairs as they arose rather than prepaying for the warranty. The shop, of course, came out ahead by exactly the same $73. Now circle back with me to that second move I told you to lock in, the you need all for pressure. Here is why I told you to remember it. The 5 moves work together. The premature whirlite creates the entry, the all for pressure multiplies the scope, the cheap tire upcharge raises the per unit price, the alignment gambit adds a service line, and the road hazard warranty closes the upsell at the end. Each one alone is small, each one alone you might shrug off. Stacked together on the same invoice, they convert a routine visit into a $1,000 afternoon. The defense is the same at every step. Slow down, ask for the measurement, ask for the printout. Ask the question the advisor is hoping you will not ask. You are not being difficult, you are being a customer. There is one more thing I want to leave you with, and I am going to say this the way I would say it to a niece of mine standing in a tire shop for the first time. The single best protective habit you can build before any of these moves get a chance to land is to know your own tires before you walk through the door. Read the date code on the sidewall. It is a 4-digit number after the letters dot, telling you the week and year the tire was manufactured. Tires older than 6 years should be replaced regardless of tread depth, because the rubber compounds harden and stop gripping properly, especially in wet weather. Check your own tread depth with a gauge or a penny on the inner edge, the middle, and the outer edge of each tire, because uneven wear tells you about alignment or inflation problems before the shop does. Write the numbers down, bring them with you. When the advisor recommends replacement, compare his numbers to yours. If they match, the recommendation is honest. If they do not, you have a conversation to have, and the leverage in that conversation is yours, not his. Let me draw you a contrast that lives in my memory from about 18 months ago. Two customers came into a shop I was consulting for on the same Saturday morning, both with similar cars, both with one nail in one rear tire, both arriving within 20 minutes of each other. The first customer was a man in his early 60s, retired electrician who had been working on his own cars since he was a teenager. He walked up to the counter, said he had a nail in his right rear, asked for a plug or patch, paid $34, and was out the door in 25 minutes. The second customer was a woman in her late 20s, first car she had bought on her own, who had been told by a friend that the dealership was a rip-off and the tire chain would be cheaper. She walked up to the same counter with the same problem, and the advisor pulled up her vehicle on his screen, noted, that the rear tires were both at 630 seconds of tread, recommended replacement of both rear tires, then noted that the front tires were not the same brand and recommended replacing all for to match. Then added the alignment service because new tires were being installed, then offered the road hazard warranty because the new tires were now an investment worth protecting. She walked out an hour and 40 minutes later having spent $890. Same shop, same Saturday, same advisor actually. The only difference between those two customers was knowledge. The man knew what a plug cost, the woman did not. The pitch followed the knowledge gap, the component of the scam I have not talked about yet and want to spend a few minutes on now, is the disposal fee and the mounting and balancing line items, because these are where the final padding happens after all the other moves are done. A standard mounting and balancing charge on a passenger car tire ranges from $15 to $25 per tire at most independent shops. At chain tire stores, that same line item is often quoted at $30 to $45 per tire, plus an additional valve stem replacement fee of $3 to $7 per tire that may or may not be needed, plus a tire disposal fee of $3 to $8 per tire that is supposed to cover the cost of recycling your old tires. The disposal fee deserves a closer look. Tire recycling facilities in most regions actually pay shops between 50 cents and $2 per tire to collect used tires because the rubber has commercial value as fuel for cement kilns and as crumb rubber for playground surfaces. The shop is not paying to dispose of your tire. The shop is being paid to dispose of your tire. The $8 disposal fee on your invoice is, in most cases, pure margin. Here is a metaphor I want you to carry with you. A tire shop quote is like a fishing net. The advisor casts the net wide, knowing most of what he scoops up will not stick, hoping you will pay for the parts of the net that catch on you. Your job as the customer is to be a fish that knows the difference between the net and the water. Every move I just described is a strand of that net. Premature wear, all for pressure, cheap tire upgrade, alignment add-on, road hazard warranty, mounting and disposal fees. Each one alone is thin. Stacked together, they form a pattern that closes around the inexperienced driver and leaves the experienced one alone. The experienced driver swims through the net without noticing. The inexperienced driver gets the whole bundle. I want to take a moment to give you a contrast pair that captures the whole structure in one frame. Picture two tire purchases happening on the same day, in the same city, on similar vehicles. The first customer walks into a small independent tire shop in an older industrial neighborhood, the kind with one bay, two lifts, and a counter that has been worn smooth by 30 years of forearms. The shop sells the same brand of tire that the chain across town sells, sourced from the same wholesale distributor. The customer pays $110 per tire installed, including mounting, balancing, valve stems, and disposal, with no warranty pitch, no alignment add-on unless requested, and no road hazard upsell. Total bill $440 out the door. The second customer walks into a national chain location 10 miles away, buys the same brand and size tire, and accepts the bundled package the advisor presents at the counter. Total bill $890 out the door. Same tires, same installation work. Same warranty length from the tire manufacturer itself, separate from the chain's road hazard product. The difference between those two invoices, $450, was generated entirely by the chain's bundling structure and the customer's willingness to accept it. The independent shop made a fair margin and a customer for life. The chain made a larger margin and a customer whose next visit will probably be to the independent shop. There is a specific kind of inflated tire quote I want to flag that targets older vehicles, because this one shows up disproportionately on cars more than 10 years old and it deserves its own warning. The pitch is that older vehicles need premium tires too, compensate for their aging suspension, worn shocks, or degraded handling. The advisor will recommend a more expensive tire than you actually need, with the reasoning that the better tire will mask the deficiencies of the older car. This is not how tires work. A premium tire on a tired suspension does not improve the suspension. A premium tire on a worn vehicle simply costs more without delivering proportional benefit, because the tire's performance ceiling is limited by the chassis underneath it. The honest recommendation for an older car is the appropriate quality tier for the vehicle's intended use, which for most older cars is the basic touring tire that costs $60 to $90 per position, not the high-performance summer tire that costs $180. The advisor knows this. The advisor is paid to point you upward anyway. The older the vehicle, the more aggressive the upward push, because the assumption is that an older car owner is either less informed or more anxious about reliability and therefore easier to upsell into a tier they do not need. I want to be honest with you about something now because I think you have earned it after sitting through this with me. I worked at one of these big chain tire shops for almost 3 years in my late 20s. I rotated tires, I quoted alignments, I sold the road hazard warranty more times than I can count, and on more than one Saturday afternoon I walked a customer through the for tire replacement pitch knowing in my gut that the rear pair had 10,000 miles of life left. I did it because the bonus structure paid me on attached services, not just labor, and because the manager pulled me aside 1 week to ask why my warranty attach rate was below the store average. I do not feel proud of those quotes. I think about a few of them by name even now, customers whose faces I can still picture in the waiting room. The reason I am telling you all of this today, the reason I sit here and lay these 5 moves out one by one, is that the version of me who knew better and stayed quiet anyway owes a debt I am still trying to pay back. If this video means one of you walks out with the right tires, the right number, and the right invoice, then we are a little closer to even. Drop a comment with the tire quote that felt the worst to you, the chain that pitched it, and whether you signed or walked. I am going to read every one of them and tell you, as straight as I can, whether you got the pitch or whether you got the real number.